Before we even talk about these concepts of black exploitation film and so on, we need a little brief history about what was going on at the time. Rosa Parks, sitting there and refusing to take her seat on the back of the bus. All of you have heard that. If you can't see it really well, what ended up happening in this one is there's a big crowd of white people who are behind them who don't want them there, and start dumping food on their heads and yelling and screaming and threatening them. At that point, they hung in there non-violently.
What did I get out of the lecture? A lot of information and different people's insights. I picked up a little bit of ways to communicate better around people by, being part of a group discussion. And I didn't feel like anybody was watching us and, going to make us like targets for, rebellion at campus or Occupy LA. I felt really safe here.
When I was young, one of the worst things you could sit there and call somebody was a step and fetch it, okay? And step and fetch it was actually this actor, this actor right here. This is step and fetch it actually, right? And that was his traditional role. He was always the one who sat there, walked up and said, "Yes, sir, boss, whatever you want, boss," right? And so on. And he would sit there and tap dance for white audiences and do those type of things. So black exploitation film is a film genre that comes about as a response to the Black Power movement, okay? All of a sudden they see all these people calling for Black Power and everything else.
I think that by him having this lecture that people are really going to start looking at films differently and really understand that the film today, where the way they portray blacks is not accurate, and how Django is probably the closest thing in the last probably 5 to 10 years that gives a different perspective of blacks in films and give it somewhat of an accuracy of how it was back in slavery days.
When people say that racism doesn't exist anymore, he says we practice what's called colorblind racism, okay? Is this form of racism that's different. It's built into ideological units as opposed to just individual parts, okay? If you really want to be an advocate for change, we need to stop being a denial. If we really want to be advocates for change as academics, we need to stop allowing people to whitewash history.